Crown Books was a discount book retailer chain that started in 1977 and closed in 2001. Thank you for your suggestion.
Today, someone is going to pay too much for a book. Please, don't let it be you. Come to Crown. No other bookstore matches our everyday discounts on thousands and thousands and thousands of titles. Guaranteed. There's no better gift for under $6 than the Sierra Club Engagement Calendar. Save 47%. And save 40% on the Random House Children's Encyclopedia, a must for young readers. So remember, if you paid full price, you didn't buy it at Crown or Super Crown.
The origins of Crown Books can be traced back to a drugstore chain. In 1954, Herbert and Gloria opened the first Dart drugstore in the Adams Morgan section of the city. With Dart Drug, Herbert Haft started a practice that eventually had a tremendous impact on merchandising, selling almost every product in his store below suggested retail prices. The low prices made Dart Drug popular with customers, but Haft faced over 100 lawsuits from major pharmaceutical and supply companies trying to stop the practice. The lawsuit would eventually end up in the Supreme Court, where Haft would win his lawsuits. In 1960, the court ruled against fixing wholesale prices, a decision critical to the growth of the discounting business. As a large discounter, the Dart Drug chain forced other drugstores in the area to lower prices in order to compete. In the 1970s, Dart Drug took another marked departure from traditional drugstore operations, instituting a super drugstore. Haft filled a huge space with anything he could make a deal on. Soon as Super Darts were selling hardware, lumber, lawn chairs, coolers, and beer in addition to the usual health and beauty aids and drugs. By that time, the chain was organized under the umbrella of the Dart Group properties, which also included Track Auto, Shoppers World Warehouse, Total Beverage, Dart Drug, and Combined Properties.
Okay, hold on. I like a good story as much as the next person, but what in the hell does this have to do with where Scott Lang is?
I'm getting there.
You put a dime in him, you gotta let the whole song play out.
He'd like human jukebox. Oh.
Okay. So what does this have to do with Crown Books? In 1977, Herbert Haft's eldest son, Robert, joined his father's company and started Crown Books Corporation. The idea behind Crown Books was the subject of Robert's Harvard Business School thesis. Books could be sold in a discount format. Robert Haft borrowed money from his father to start this business venture. With the slogan, "You'll never have to pay full price again," Robert discounted hardbook bestsellers 35% and paperback bestsellers 25%. The stores also offered remaindered books, paperbacks, magazines, and tapes at 10 to 40% below publishers' suggested retail prices. Robert's approach initially alienated many publishers and competitors, but proved to be the first of several chains of discount booksellers. In 1981, Crown Books was incorporated in Delaware. In 1983, Crown Books went public. In its 6 years of existence, it had grown into a chain with a market value of over $210 million. During the decade, however, the discount book-selling market was becoming more crowded. In 1985, Crown Books had earnings high of 5.7% after taxes. The book chain expanded its line into audio tapes as well as video products that related to authors whose books it carried. Robert followed his father's marketing strategies. Crown Books was clustered in certain metropolitan areas, which allowed the company to concentrate advertising and distribution costs. They were usually in strip shopping centers or downtown storefronts, saving rentals over the mall locations favored by competitors. The layouts were identical. Science fiction, travel, and cookbooks, for instance, were found in the same locations at each store. Store managers made local marketing decisions concentrating on stocking books that moved. According to a 1987 Fortune article, Crown Books returned only 10% of its stock to publishers. Its competitors normally return 30 to 60%. While the 1980s had witnessed a phenomenal 76% growth rate in book retailers nationwide, the recession ringing in the 1990s would quickly stunt such growth. With the advent of its Super Crown Books location, as well as the boom in sales volume of competitors like Borders, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million, the company reevaluated its classic Crown locations and determined that several of the smaller stores would become increasingly unprofitable as the trend towards larger bookstores continued. By the end of 1992, Crown Books operated 250 stores. Generally, the stores were between 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, but 19 were in the new Super Crown format, ranging in size from 6,500 to 35,000 square feet. Crown Books reported a $200,000 loss for 1993, despite a 15% revenue rise. At this time, Crown Books continued to close or convert smaller stores, concentrating on opening larger superstores. Crown Books increased its superstore format to 15,000 square feet, while from 1993 to 1997, the total number of Crown retail stores at its 7 metropolitan area clusters declined from 247 locations to 168. The number of Super Crown Book locations rose by 94 stores, offsetting the closing of 182 smaller Classic Crown stores and resulting in a net increase in the chain's actual retail sales area. Across the industry, 1995 sales at Books Superstores, Barnes & Noble, Borders, Crown, and Books A Million jumped 45% collectively. Market share among the 4 major bookstore chains had increased from its 1996 level of 42.8% to almost 50% by 1997. By February of 1996, the company operated 172 stores, 84 of them of which were Super Crown locations. Around this time, the company became embroiled in family squabbles amongst the founders and their board of directors. Lawsuits occurred, and the infighting led to changes in leadership, as well as large payouts. This, coupled with lagging sales and increased competition from the other 3 large super chains, caused the company into a downward spiral. With the dissolution of the Dart Group, Crown was unable to find a buyer and was forced into bankruptcy. Over the next few years, the chain began to close over half of its 196 stores and pulled out of the Houston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Portland, and Sacramento markets. Crown emerged briefly from bankruptcy in 1997, only to fall back into it in 1998. The company was strangled by the lack of financing and stores too small to compete with the superstores of the competition. By the end of the first bankruptcy, only 56 Crown Books remained. Crown emerged briefly from their second bankruptcy in the spring of 2000, but by the fall of 2000, the company's debt was purchased by Wells Fargo, who then proceeded to force the company into liquidation due to its immense unpaid debt. In February of 2001, Crown Books filed for liquidation, and in April of 2001, 10 of the DC area stores and 8 Chicago stores were purchased by Books A Million for pennies on the dollar. The liquidation of the remaining Crown Books stores were completed by July of 2001, when the former Palo Alto, California flagship store was closed. In October of 2011, Crown Books made a brief comeback when a San Diego company, A&S Booksellers, purchased the right to use the name Crown Books and opened some 300 temporary bookstores, recently in spaces vacated by the big book chains of B. Dalton and Borders Books. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks.